According to most studies, the number one fear of most people is public speaking. The number two fear is death. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld was astonished to find that death came in second. He mused that this means that the average person going to a funeral would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. Maybe that's why President Franklin Roosevelt gave these hints on speech making. Be sincere, be brief, be seated. Joking aside, it takes a special skill to stand up alone and speak in front of an audience. And it's not just professors, politicians, and members of the clergy who need this skill. Whether or not you pursue a career in the performing arts, there's a good possibility that at some point you will need to face an audience by yourself. Actually, as students, you already do, every time you speak in class. And actually, a teacher does it all day. The ability to communicate to a group has applications for all of us. Every time we're in a group and someone tells a joke, we become an audience. Every time we try to persuade friends to our point of view or attempt to motivate them, we are speakers. The need for communication skills will increase as you grow older, regardless of your career path. So if the need for these skills is universal, what's the best way to enhance them? For one thing, we can learn a lot from those who do this kind of thing for a living. Who better to teach than someone who faces an audience alone on a regular basis and really enjoys it? Today we're going to meet Robin Bach, who's a stand-up comedian.
There's nothing like looking out at an audience and seeing a huge guffaw and a smile, somebody's dabbing their eyes with a napkin because you made them cry because they're laughing so hard. There's nothing like it in the world.
We wondered how Robin got started and if she had any other performing experience before stand-up. And we wanted to find out what kind of training and education helped her to develop as a comedian.
I did community theater. I did theater in college and high school. I think I was first bitten by the bug in 6th grade. We put on The Hobbit, and I was Bilbo Baggins. I went to a comedy school in Chicago. There was a club, it's no longer in existence now, but it was called the Funny Firm. And they had a comedy class, like a 10 or 12-week class, and you went on Sundays, and it was like 3 or 4 hours. And you learned how to use the mic, you see, can you get on stage, without making a fool out of yourself. You learn how to write comedy, what's a setup, what's a tagline, what's a punchline, So I took the class.
Stand-up comedy, and indeed any solo performance, involves the audience a lot. They have to care about what you have to say. In a way, they are partners in your performance. And as Robin explains, that means getting to know who your audience is and what will resonate with them.
You have to know, if I roll into a town where I've never been before, I go to the Chamber of Commerce, I pick up the local paper, and I do my homework. Is there anything that I should be talking about that is really going to grab the people in the audience? That I can weave into my own stuff. And I'll usually open with something like that. People like to hear you acknowledge that you know where you are. They like to hear their town being spoken about.
Performing stand-up comedy and other forms of public speaking are not exactly the same, of course, but the use of humor is recognized as a good way to get an audience involved in what you have to say, regardless of the style of speech or the topic. While all of us can develop the skills to use humor in our public speaking, is that the same as doing flat-out comedy? Can you be taught to be funny? What is needed to be a stand-up?
I don't think that everyone can do comedy. People say all the time, I'm funny with my friends. I tell good jokes at parties, and, my family thinks I'm funny. That's not the same thing as doing stand-up, as far as I'm concerned. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and I think you have to understand how the business works, and you have to understand how the performance part of it operates, because there's kind of almost like a template to it.
One of our reoccurring themes in this series is the need to develop a thick skin when a performer puts themselves on display, either in a role or as themselves. They can face disappointment, hurt, and rejection. It's easy to get discouraged, but it can also make you even more determined to succeed. This is especially true of stand-up comedy.
If you're afraid of failure, and if you're the kind of person that your life has to be so structured and you need to know what you're doing every day, don't be a comic, because you will be very unhappy. Comedy is one of the most solitary performance arts I've ever seen. Not only are you up there by yourself, like as opposed to being in an improv troupe where you're working off, other people, but you spend a lot of time by yourself. If you don't like your own company, do not be a comic, because it's a lot of, if you don't mind, being in public places and talking to yourself out loud, and because it'll happen.
It just comes out, huh?
Yeah.
It just blurts right
well,
out.
There's nobody else there to talk. I mean, I talk to salespeople. I talk to anybody.
Sure.
I'm talking to you.
Another reoccurring theme in this series deals with financial practicalities. Only a very, very tiny number of performers become huge stars. For many, the goal isn't stardom, but the ability to support themselves while just working in the arts. But until they can, there are still bills to be paid. We asked Robin how she did it and what practical advice she had for aspiring performers.
Stay in school. Stay in school. Don't give your mom and dad a heart attack. Stay, because you have to have something to fall back on. You have to. I went to college and I was in the corporate world for years, and when I temp, I do all kinds of different temp jobs. I do a lot of computer work, which comes in really handy, because a lot of it I can do at home if I don't want to take a temp job. But you have to have other skills. I think public speaking, speech. I think it's important that that your diction is correct and is good, or is it well? No, I think that's important to really work and train your speaking voice. You have to be comfortable on stage. You have to be really comfortable on stage. And theater arts. You have to know how to write. English classes and any kind of a writing class. I think that's all really helpful.
As Robin tells it, there's a lot more to doing stand-up than just being funny. But the skills she uses are many of the same ones that public speakers will need. She noted the need to get comfortable on stage. One good way for students to do that is by getting involved in speech competitions. We're going to see 3 students performing monologues that they will be using in a local forensic league competition.
Tell you what, you be a good girl today when you get your hair done, and Nettie'll give you what's in this box.
And she opens it. Inside is a beautiful tear-shaped ring. It seems to sparkle with every jewel on the planet. I've never seen such colors, so many facets, so much light. I will do anything to get this ring. So I am a good girl, and I do calm down, and I get my hair done.
I remember my husband used to tell me to go ahead and praise God, because nothing was going to change when I got back home anyway, that he'd still be there and I'd be his angel. And I never knew what he meant by this. I mean, he smiled when he said it, and he sounded sincere. And it was the only thing he ever said that lit me up in our 18 years of marriage, so I wanted to believe he meant well by it.
The professor aimed the shrinky pig at a hideous pile of trash. Suddenly, it shrank to the size of a gumball. It vexed. Oh, now I must try the goosey grow. The professor aimed the goosey grow at an ordinary hot dog. Suddenly, it grew and grew till it crashed through the walls of the laboratory. I've done it! With these 2 inventions, I can solve the world's garbage problem and make enough food for everybody on the entire planet. Oh, yes.
Speech class and debate or forensic competitions are terrific opportunities to sharpen public speaking abilities. As with most things, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more times you can face an audience alone, the less frightening it will be. And the skills learned by competition will carry over into real life as well.
For me, it's having something that I can be competitive at and that I can set goals for myself and meet those goals and feel like I've achieved something week to week. And it's not something that just occurs once in a year or once in 6 months. It's something that I have a chance to do on a regular basis.
Well, it really helps to bring out the inner qualities of people. Like people who engage in this, it helps them to become better actors, it helps them to become better speakers overall, and it also helps them to become better people socially.
You meet people who, are like you, and not really in speech, but, in school, it's much easier for you to just go up and start a conversation with someone. I know my freshman year I was very shy and very quiet, and as I got into speech, I learned more about, conversation and, just talking to someone about, just anything, and now it's a lot easier just to communicate with people.
Public speaking skills can also be very important academically and in our development as communicators. It takes commitment and dedication to learn your speech and lots and lots and lots of practice.
It does a lot for your academics, really just memorization skills. It helps you, grasp onto things a lot easier, and you're able to interpret things and you're able to figure things out.
It shows people that you have what it takes to commit to something, that you're not just going to go start something and then leave it. And it shows a greater measure of ambition, that you're willing to give up a day out of your week, that you're willing to do it and enjoy it and commit yourself to something so lengthy. I've learned that every person has a lot of different dimensions, and that when I do my speech, I'm not the same person that I think I am. And when, say you're in school, then you're the student, and if you're at home, then you could be the sister or the daughter. But when you're at speech, you're yourself, and you control exactly how you do that day, and you control the amount of gratitude or gratification that you get from the experience.
Mark Twain once said, "I like a good story well told. That is the reason I am sometimes forced to tell them myself." This is what Robin has no doubt learned. She tells her own story when she performs stand-up. In solo performances, our students did monologues. They told the stories of others. But the authorship of the tales we tell isn't important. Our ability to convey and communicate that story is.
Funding for this series was provided by the Northeastern Ohio Education Association. NEOEA members include elementary and secondary teachers, university professors, and support professionals working to provide great public schools for every child. Teaching materials for Shortcuts to Happiness are available on the web at pbs4549.org/shortcuts.